so and so missed it, do know that it's recorded and you'll be able to access it again or send it out to any folks who weren't here with us today. So I'm just going to go over, how to use Zoom, if you will. We're all still maybe learning, or some of us are experts, but so I'm just going to go over how we're going to engage with one another. So the primary way that we like to engage with each other is by talking. This is a chapter chat. It's a chat for a reason. So while our presenter Veronica is presenting, we do ask that you keep yourself muted, but there will become a time that we're going to ask, if you guys have questions or if you want to generate conversation, and please feel free to unmute yourself and start having that organic conversation. Another way that we can engage with one another is via chat. So if you hover over your Zoom screen, you're gonna see like a little down bar pop up. Click on that chat, and we make it so everyone can chat with one another. So you can chat with participants, you can chat with NASW folks and our presenter. So if you just want to make comments, or start talking about what the content is with one another while Veronica is speaking, please feel free to use that. I also want to make a note that there is closed captioning available for this presentation as well. So again, hover over your Zoom screen, and there should be somewhere that has that little CC for closed captioning. You can feel free to turn that on or off as you need it. The last thing I'm going to mention is that this program does not hold CE credit. This is a way for us to socially connect while we're physically distancing. But the New York State chapter does have many CE programs available. We do at least one free CE per month for our members, and do have many others that are free to social workers at large. So I'm going to put the link to our CE schedule in the chat box as well. So if you're, unfortunately not able to do CEs today, we hope that you can join us in the future. So without taking up any more of our time, I'm going to hand it over to our expert and our presenter today, Veronica. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me and inviting us, and so much hard work that you do, Sam and Amelia. So thank you so much for that. Sometimes we may think it goes unnoticed, but we notice. So good job. So welcome. Thank you for sharing this time with us. I know that right now it's 12 o'clock. You're probably hungry and you're probably multitasking and eating yourself. You're having yourself your lunch. So that's good for you. I know I'm going to get my lunch after this. I'll probably have a salad, but then again, who am I kidding? I'm going for that burger. So let's have fun. Let's have fun and multitask with this. So I really, again, my name is Veronica. I'm a social worker. I'm also a substance abuse counselor with a T. And I'm in a postgraduate program for children and adolescents with the psychodynamic framework at Adelphi. So we're growing, right? We're growing. We want to start with Kristen. We have a partnership with Family Service League and the library. So Kristen's going to tell us how this baby was born.
So, hi everybody. My name is Kristen Todd-Worm. I am not a social worker. I am a librarian by trade. My position here at the Middle Country Public Library is something called, I'm the national coordinator for something called Family Place Libraries. And I'm the early childhood coordinator for services that happen here at Middle Country Public Library. So Family Place Libraries is something that started about 22 years ago with my predecessors who have since retired. It's a national initiative that helps libraries become community centers for family engagement and early childhood development, as well as parent support. So it's something that grew out of Middle Country Public Library. We're the national model, and now we have it in 530 sites in 32 states around the country. And it includes things like parent-child workshops where families come into the library and they meet with a resource professional, but all through doing play activities. It's very informal, always developmentally appropriate. We change our spaces in the library to be adapting to early childhood. You walk into our library, there's toys on the floor and there's couches for families to sit and connect. There's specialized programs for children and families that start at birth. So it was a movement that really started to take off around the country, and we do the training here at Middle Country. And probably I'm going to say it's been 16 to 17 years since we first started the partnership for social work, which Veronica is now our social worker here. I would say it started about 16, 17 years ago from our Family Place initiative. We were finding that we were getting more and more parents and children to come into the library because of our programming and our designated spaces that are really set up for for young children. And as a mom myself, I can tell you that there's not many places that want you and your 2-year-old when they're having a meltdown or a tantrum, but libraries became one of them, and it really brought in tons of people and tons of and with that, tons of connection. So we started seeing that the parent child workshop was wonderful because we would invite resource professionals such as speech pathologists or early childhood development specialists, and parents could get information on, how come I can't get him to toilet train, or, is my child speaking enough for 18 months old? But what we were seeing is that there was a real need for connection to basic need services, to counseling. And a lot of these families and parents were disclosing to us that they really had a hard time getting connected to services in the community, and not just services like the library could offer, but mental health services, basic need services, food, housing, citizenship classes, stuff that we might not necessarily have had at the time to give to them, but we could maybe say, well, call this person or call that person, but we really didn't have the expertise to give them what they needed. So we really thought that social work and libraries, and this is going back 16, 17 years, would be a natural fit. We are on Long Island. We're in Suffolk County, and a lot of our libraries are civil service libraries, which means we're regulated by civil service guidelines. So under civil service guidelines, we can't just hire a social worker. I can't just say we want a social worker on staff and have my director approve that. So we had to come up with a creative idea. So we actually decided to partner with Family Service League, which is a very large human service organization on Long Island. And we thought, hey, you guys have social workers, and they were having a hard time finding placements for all their social workers in the field. They were having a hard time with, offices and office space, and where was I going to put this person to best reach this clientele? So we said, how about if we collaborated and had some of your social workers come here into the library and work with our population here? So of course, with that comes financing and money. And so when we first started, we started to write grants and look for funders who would be interested in helping us get this going. So when we do this, Veronica is a employee of Family Service League. So she is managed by Family Service League. Her paycheck comes from Family Service League. She is working at Middle Country Public Library. So she is housed here, but I don't necessarily supervise her because I am not a social worker. So she can't debrief cases with me or, all of the privacy. So we really work as a team and a collaboration. So Veronica is, and we are very welcoming and make sure she feels like she is one of our employees because we love her and we make sure that she's part of us. But she really brings the expertise into the library that a librarian or library staff cannot have. So it was a way of kind of getting around that natural the barricade that we had up saying, no, you can't hire a social worker. So Robin at Family Service League is somebody who supervises her. And then myself and another librarian, Jessica, and Robin at Family Service League, and Veronica, we all work together as a collaboration. And Veronica is a part-time employee. So someone had just asked that in the chat. So she works approximately 15 hours a week, and we do raise grant money. I do a lot of the writing to look for grant money to sustain the partnership long term. And then between grant money and some programming money from Middle Country Library, we piece it all together because we've made a real commitment here as a library that we feel that this is an important service. Just like we run other types of programs like literacy programs and ESL programs. Our board and our director has been nothing but fabulously supportive of the services that we can offer with a social worker. And we have really committed to making sure that this continues to go on for, above the 16 and 17 years that we've been doing it. We really are committed because our community looks for it. They need it. And they feel comfortable. And I know Veronica's going to talk a little bit about like how we do things here and what we do, but that's just kind of the background, how it got started. I was not originally in this position when it got started, but I was kind of involved with it, and it's kind of evolved over time. And I'm happy to still be with it because I truly do believe that the library is a community center, and a social worker is that that liaison that can really connect all of our staff, that can connect all of the resources out there, and it can connect our patrons together. So I'm thrilled to have her. So I'm going to let her continue with the lead, and I'm here to jump in for any other library related questions, but I will mute.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that enthusiasm of expressing what we do here and the importance of it. I think that's what she captured, really, the importance of this work. And we start to see how it evolves. And it started, we were the first ones, like she said. And then nationwide in San Francisco, they were the first ones to have a full-time clinical LCSW, clinical social worker. And then that team grew, and they had now they have peer support specialists that help out in their needs are different than ours, right? There's San Francisco, we're Center Region Selden, so their needs are different. And one of their primary needs is housing. So they have a task force that does that. So we're a little different. So, but why social, why is this so important? And we have a saying in social work, right, in the mental health profession, that we try to meet the client where they're at. So physically, they're in the communities, they're around the corners, they could walk here, they could take the bus, it's very accessible. And when you come to the library, no one says, oh, she's going to, or he is going to a mental health clinic, look at them, they need help. Because we know that society right now still has there's stigma with receiving mental health services. So that is a layer we kind of take away, that you come in, nobody knows if you're getting a movie, chatting with a social worker, or getting a book. So that's awesome, right? And I want to quote Selma Freiberg. I hope I did not mess up her name, because if she finds out, she may get mad. But she was a social worker, and she was also a psychoanalyst. And I think she was very important to understand the work she did. She did therapy in the kitchens with mothers who were struggling to bond with their children. And we know that there's many reasons why that happens. But the fact that she brought therapy literally into the kitchen, where that's where they were, that's where they physically were, it provided it took away a layer of neglect. So as therapists, as clinicians, we find ways how to not do harm. And some of that is, how do we provide services to sometimes members in the community that might be neglected by those services not being available to them? We know that today, if you're educated or you have resources, you have social capital, you could go on Google, you could find yourself a therapist, you could find resources, you know how to get here, you know how to get there. But think about if there's a disability. Think about if there's a mental health diagnosis that it prevents that. And some people come to us, for example, they need a coat. Well, I go beyond the coat. I say, when was the first time you needed a coat? How does it feel to ask for a coat? How can we continue helping you? So if you come back, maybe it's not for a coat. Maybe it's for, let's start therapy. Let's do, there's something, different. And I think that is the one of the biggest things, that we also introduce people to therapy. We don't provide therapy here in the sense of long-term therapy. We provide short-term therapy. We try to do what we call supportive therapy. So we try to build the ego the way, as soon as we can, fast. And we also perform task-focused therapy, which we know as social workers, what's the mission? Let's get it done. Let's break it down. And hopefully we don't come back to this issue. But if we do, let's talk about it. I also like to provide referrals. I like to, give a number of referrals, but if they don't work out, I always tell them, come back to me. Why not? If you didn't like them and you broke up with them, good, come back. Let's find you another therapist. Let's find you another resources, whatever it is, right? Because the importance is not the referral, but it's the relationship that we're building while we do the referrals. Why are we doing this? So the process, right? The process is important. And that builds relationships. We're modeling how to build relationships, but also communities. Because when they come back, they say, I'm going to that lady at the library. So now the library is part of that community, that support system. Who would have thought of that? It's amazing. It's amazing. So not neglecting members in our community is very important. So a typical day, right? What do? Veronica, what do you do? I do a lot. I do a lot. Usually I come in, I check in with every desk, which I love because like every workstation that we have, because it builds, again, relationships. I say hi, I say hello, I'm in the office today. If somebody needs me, call me, come get me, whatever it is. And it has happened many times where they just come to the door. I help somebody right there and then. It's amazing. I do what we call floor outreach. Before COVID, you saw me at the library walking around, giving out my flyers, introducing, playing with the children, and just being part of that community. And they saw, oh, she's okay. She's not that bad. And when I'm also bad, I welcome that too. And one of my models is, I'm here when you're having a good day, and I'm here when you're not having a good day. So let's talk about it. So that's another way. We do plenty of outreach right now through the phone. We contact different agencies. Hey, we're here. This is what we do. And again, we do case management, lots of it, right? And again, it's about what is the need and what does this mean to the patient, to the patron. We do family counseling. So we have amazing families we've met because we see everybody that comes through the door. No one gets rejected for our services. And what clinic could do that, right? Like they only see children, or not every clinic can do that. And we're not a mental health clinic. We don't provide the intense therapy that a clinic does, but we still do provide a high caliber services. I'm also bilingual. So that is a big thing in our community. And believe it or not, a lot of individuals who are Latinos, Latinas are coming in asking for supportive therapy. And that is huge because it's not in I'm Mexican. It's not in our culture to want to talk to a therapist. They think that something's wrong with you, right? And it's not really, it's frowned upon. But here we're seeing more and more. And I hope that I'm part of that change too, that I welcome it, that I normalize it, that I said, let's talk about it. Why not? So we do a lot of that. Again, if you have questions, if you want to just jump in and ask a question or say something, am I boring you? Let me know. We'll talk about it, okay? All feedback is welcome. So one of the challenges that it's presented working at the library is that because we're not a clinic, one, we don't diagnose, right? So two, when you work at a clinic and you have an intense session or something, right, where you need to vent and you need to process it, right? You go on to your colleague and you say, I got to talk to you. This is what happened. And we have that outlet. We have that way to process things. Here, I can't do that. Everybody around me is a librarian and I can't go to them and break confidentiality. We know that we cherish and we see the importance of confidentiality. And what I do is I turn into a positive. I literally tell my coworkers, I need to talk to you about your day, my day. How's it going? Did you read a book today? Like, is there a book that you recommend? Whatever it is, because that is building a relationship with me and my coworkers. But also, it's filling that gap of me saying, I can't believe you're not going to believe what happened right now, you know? And it promotes now, again, that sense of community, and we build trust. And that's beautiful because we have each other's back, even though we're not technically in the same field, but we have each other's back. So it increases then self-care. We have to do a good self-care. Yes, I'm going to have my burger later and I will ask for myself to forgive myself later too. But we have to do our own work, right? I do believe a great therapist seek their own therapy. So we do our own work. And something to Brene Brown, she's a social worker, she's a PhD also. She has amazing books. I highly recommend it. Plus, I work at a library. It's my job to tell you to read. So she said, and I'm paraphrasing her because that's what I'm doing. I have to assess what I'm doing right and hold myself accountable and own it when I'm not. So the fact that I don't have, let's say, constant supervision, like if you did at a mental health clinic, I have to hold myself accountable. And that's awesome, right? Because now we're reflecting to the community, and we're modeling, we're showing to the community members, our patients, our patrons, that it's okay to tell me when I'm not doing okay, when I'm not doing a good job, when I'm being incompetent, right? Because I have to hold myself accountable. So I'm displaying, you could hold me accountable too. And I would say, if you feel uncomfortable with my services, you don't like it, first, I welcome a conversation. But if not, telling me, this is my number for my supervisor, telling me, because I want to grow from this. So the challenge becomes, again, a strength now, right? As a social worker, we think strength perspective, we believe in it. Also, time, because I'm part-time, it's really hard sometimes because you call an agency, you call here, you call there, and they call you and you have a voicemail that says, I'm only here Mondays and Thursdays and call Tuesdays. So it's very hard to kind of coordinate services, right? But we turn that into a positive thing. I become creative. I say, email me, let's connect through email. What time is good for you? And I'll call you. So again, I use that. And because we're short time, our supportive therapy, it's not intense. So what happens is that transference happens. And we know that transference happens in so many ways, right? So it's hard as a therapist for me to hold the transference that's happening. Instead, what I do is put it into the therapy, transfer it into the therapy, because now it's about, well, if this didn't work out, maybe this is something you could talk to another therapist that you could see long term. So I'm transferring it to therapy now and not just me, because I can't help you process that transference. And that could take time. The positive things, right? My training. I am a LMSW. I am licensed master social worker, and that's big because we do have a lot of amazing interns. They're wonderful, right? I know they're sharp interns. I like to think I was one. Maybe I'm a little egotistic, but I like to think I was a sharp intern. But with that, we know that an intern and a licensed social worker cannot provide the same services. That there's a barrier between the supervision. There's different supervision types, but there's also a different form of practice. So that's a barrier, right? Because maybe I could see the importance of that code, maybe, and it takes time to get there, right? And that's something we could teach interns. But again, it's different caliber of services, and not that they're bad, not that they're doing a horrible job. I hear they're doing amazing, but I also like to think that if they're interns and they're a BSW, they're in their bachelor's, then this is the first time maybe coming into the field. And if they have an irate patron, how do they handle that? Can that be secondary trauma for them? What can that look like for that intern? And yes, we're not, excluded from that, but we are held at a different level of accountability, and that's important. Process recordings can only help so much, right? We know that. There's a difference between sharing a process recording with your clinical supervisor than having in vivo supervision. Hope I pronounce that right. If I didn't, blame it on my accent. So so that's a big part of it. We build referrals, we build communities, we're building relationships, we're strengthening our community. Another big part, positive thing is that the caseload. Now, hear me out. My boss is here, right? So I can't say I don't work. I do work, and I work very hard, and I do good work. I like to think that. But the caseload is not as a mental health clinic. I remember when I was a substance abuse counselor, My limit was supposed to be 15 clients, 17, let's say. And I had approximately 39 because I spoke Spanish and my caseload duplicated. So there's a lot of reasons why those things happen. You and I could imagine them. But here, we don't have that kind of caseload because it's, again, short term. It's not intense as a mental health clinic. It's not like that, even though we do provide supportive therapy. So what does that mean to us, right? And I get so hyped about this because I do believe in the individual process, in the humanistic approach, how important it is for this patron to sit with me, and that time is just for them, and that I get to then later, if they need resources, to really spend that time to get those resources for them. So it's amazing. It's amazing work. It's very individualized. We don't cookie cut the work, right? Our treatment plans are very individual. So it's really exciting, the work we do here. So one way that we can continue promoting social workers and libraries together is go to your libraries. They have suggestion box. Me personally, I'm a nag. So I'm gonna go to every day to my library and put in a suggestion box. We need a social worker. We need a licensed social worker. And think about, picture yourself, how will this enhance your community, right? We talk about sometimes how crime is high, lack of housing. Well, social work, that's the work we do, right? We help a lot, we advocate, we build communities. So think about, how would it be if you had a library social worker in your community? How would you utilize it? Or if you're in the field as social worker, would you want to come into that field? And I hope after this that you get become enthusiastic about it, because it's a phenomenal place to be. Staff members are awesome. And when I need a book, I just, on my way out, get a book. And it's awesome. And I never have to turn in a book late. So think about it, picture yourself how communities are going to grow, how families are going to grow, how individuals are going to grow, and how it's going to benefit. So I thank you for your time. I know that you probably were like, oh my goodness, another Zoom meeting. Somebody mentions the word Zoom again. This is it, But so I do thank you for joining me and sharing this precious time with me, especially on a platform like Zoom. If we were in person, I'll probably give you a hug because that's the kind of person I am. So I want to thank you again. I hope you are still enjoying your lunch. And if not, I hope it was a good lunch. So if you have questions, if you have comments, please, I welcome. If you have good and bad feedback, I also welcome that.
All right, so we're going to invite anyone, if they want to talk with us, feel free to unmute yourself and ask some questions. I know that I had a few come in, I think sent to me, but if anyone wants to first talk, we can do that. And if not, I'll read off some questions.
I have a question. And first a comment. I have Veronica in my class at Adelphi, and I just have to say I'm so proud of you. And you see what a great job you're doing. It really warms my heart. But I'm just really wondering what kind of opportunities there are in terms of the number of jobs out there. I mean, I think it sounds like a great job. I would love being in a library because I love libraries and doing social work, but are there job opportunities out there?
Dr. Quinn Beers, is so nice to see you. I'm so thankful that you are part of my journey too, and all the amazing things you've taught me. And you continue to challenge me with such questions.
Oh.
But I love it. I love it. So, but it's a very important question that you're bringing up. And that is the reason why I think I'm also advocating that we promote that you want, as a community, a licensed social worker. Because yes, we do have many social work interns, but that question remains. You finish your internship and we don't have a job for you. And what do? That's kind of, what a blow. Really, that's a blow to our ego. That's a really bad place to be. So what do? So we have to advocate. Go to your library, ask, as a patron, ask, please bring that licensed social worker. You know, when you, I don't know how, maybe you could make a proposal within the budget. I don't know the financial things. That's something Kristen could highlight, but I think it comes down to that, the financial things, right? But
Yeah.
we know that it can be done. So this is part of that too, advocating and sharing and asking people to organize and say, we need a licensed social worker. And it'll be great to one day maybe to supervise that and provide to the profession as a clinical bilingual supervisor. I would love that, and I look forward to it. But I think this is one of our growing steps that we're taking. Kristen, I think you were saying something.
So yeah, so I'll attack it from the library perspective. So of course, with everything else that comes with any field, it's funding. It comes down to the funding and the money. So I would love to think that many libraries would love this opportunity, but a lot of it has to do with the budgetary constraints of, you know, of not even just not being able to hire somebody directly, but the constraints of working with another organization, having them on board with having one of their employees housed at your location. So it really takes a very strong partnership on the library's part to partner with another organization and then somehow work out that financial agreement of, you know, is she gonna be paid part from your budget, part from our budget? Are we going to be writing grants together? So I think this is something that we're going to see evolve over time. Libraries are doing it. There are libraries like San Francisco, which Veronica mentioned. Now, I think I actually met the social worker at a conference from San Francisco, and I heard them talk, and I'm pretty sure that they're in a different situation because they are a city library, and their library is governed by the city, and the city had a department where the city could hire a social worker. So it's different for every library, but I think you're going to see, as libraries reinvent themselves and become more of a community center, this need is only going to grow. So I think the more we can advocate for how much usage a social worker gets in a library, the more people will see the reason for, you know, for funding.
I will say that I'm in the Kumsawag, not the school district, but that's my library, the Kumsawag Public Library, and they just sent out an email stating that there's a social worker on. I don't know what the arrangement is, but there is a social worker, and I was like, yes.
I am glad, and I hope you make a connection with her or him and get to talk with them and see how that collaboration can grow as a community member, right? Especially a professor. I think that's a huge way to introduce, maybe continue introducing that into the field. So thank you so much, Dr. Queen Beers, for your question.
Heidi, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a comment on kind of identifying or advocating for a social worker in a library. I was thinking that, so I'm a social worker housed in a library, but I'm actually in a public school library. I'm just the school social worker, and this is where they put me. And I actually really think it feels very appropriate for my office to be here. And I'm actually a Long Islander that is living currently in Maine. So I saw this on Instagram, and I was like, I am totally in. And so you've done a great job, and I really appreciate this lunch session. I've also worked in a library as just a shelving person in previous jobs, and I've always felt like if I wasn't a social worker, that's where I belonged. And the roles have always felt very close to me. Social worker and a librarian, just because of the outreach that I've seen librarians have to do, and the people that come in and they have to quickly think on their feet how to support that person with, oh my goodness, such a gamut of such a wide range of issues, right? Or challenges. And so I just thought this was such a good meeting. And I'm so happy. I didn't know that there's social workers in libraries, and I was just so pumped. But so what I was thinking here, when I need to support people with homelessness, connecting them to services and the town, I have to call the town for support, and they have somebody, but they're not social workers. It doesn't feel like they're trained with the same confidentiality, the same just like looking at somebody as a whole person. And I feel like what we could do to advocate is when you call a city or town and say, hey, you're trying to tackle these different issues in all these other places. What if we just brought that together like an umbrella and hire a social worker housed in the library to kind of tackle all the like support many of those things you're dealing with in other places in the town. So kind of shifting the funding from those places to support hiring a social worker and giving them a home to have in the library. And that feels like, I think when we advocate for things, I've been told in other ways, well, give me the figures, like break it down monetarily and break it down with how many tasks that role will actually kind of take care of for us. And I think sometimes there's more power in that. So that's just a thought.
Heidi, you're bringing up a really amazing point. I want to first thank you for being so brave and courage to say those things, like to really think about this and more deeply, and to say we need help and we could do this way. And I think that takes courage, especially as social workers. We need to have that. You mentioned something very important too about the similarities between social work and librarians, is that if you look at our core values, they're very similar. They're very, very similar. So I think that may be also a reason why we're so attracted to each other. But and it makes sense, right? So yes, I hope that they listen to you. I'm glad that we have one more supporter and that we can find a way to shift that money. And I always like to think about it like this: if you had a baby right now, you may not spend money the way you used to, but you're still going to spend money. So how can we do that with being in the library? Can I be the baby in the library? You know, should we look at the chat questions? So thank you again, Heidi.
We have some questions coming in. One came from Abigail. Abigail said, thank you, Veronica. I love your approach to clinical work and thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask about your experience with homelessness in the library. How often does your position intersect with the need for housing?
Yeah, so we have had times where we have helped individuals who are experiencing homelessness. It's very challenging because I'm not saying there's no homeless individuals that are experiencing homelessness here in Center Ridge or in Selden. However, we still need to figure out a way how we're going to get these resources to them. When they come into the library, they come for warmth sometimes, or just to cool off. And then again, it's hard for me to come to someone and say, oh, it appears you're homeless, right? We don't do that, because what does a person who's homeless look like? So that's very challenging for me if I suspect that someone may be experiencing homelessness in our library to come and introduce. So that's why I think our general approach of doing our floor outreach and just introducing myself to everyone, it's a way to say, hey, I'm here. And we have had, it's not high, it's not a big trend in the people we help here, but I am equipped and ready to help individuals that need housing. And one thing I love, and my husband said it really well, and one of his mottos is, I'm going to go through you, around you, or over you to get things done. And I believe that. And I believe that when it comes to individuals experiencing homelessness, I'm on the phone until we get those resources for that individual. And I don't know if it's just my background, but I'm very spicy. I am going to get it done. So it's very important to us to help everyone. But yeah, sadly, and I say sadly because we wish we could help more individuals. We know that there are a population of individuals that are experiencing homelessness right now. So it's sad that we can't get that help to them right now, but we are here and ready to help.
Awesome, thank you. And Abigail, let us know if you have any follow-up questions to that. I have another question from Mary. Since you started, have you experienced an increase in CPS or subsequent CPS cases?
No, I have not called CPS during my time here. We all as social workers don't like that phone call. But if it has to be done, it has to be done. We have had cases where we had to assess if it's something reportable, and so far it hasn't been, and we still are equipped to address it. And I have very strong clinical supervision. She's amazing. Her name is Robin. Sadly, she couldn't be here today, so I'm going to text her how much fun we had today. But she's very available to me. So when these situations happen, we're equipped to do that. I've had in my past contact CPS. I know the process. I pretty much memorized the form, what it asks for, because we're not going to pull out the form and say, hold on, I got to find out where you see that, where's that person right now, where's the kid or whatever. Like, we don't do that, right? So I know I like to keep a form handy. If it happens, I'm equipped to do it. Again, I try to memorize the questions, gather that information. So it comes as a conversation if I'm sensing that it might be a reportable conversation. A reportable incident.
Thank you. I also have a few different resources that Sarah sent in to everyone. One of them, the first one at 1234, is a link to a map of all social workers and public libraries in the US and Canada, and students too, so that is very cool. And they also sent in those interested in learning more about social work student library internships link. Sarah sent that over to everyone at 1237. So our chat log will also be saved and published on that chapter chat site. So if you don't click it now, and a week from now, you're like, oh my goodness, I need that link about internships and libraries, you'll be able to get it when you go to the chapter chat page on our website. All right, does anyone have any other questions or conversation that they just wanted to make a comment about? I got a private message from Carrie. Carrie was wondering, do you have an LCSW or an LMSW? And do you find that social workers working in libraries are more often LC or LMSW?
So most individuals right now working at libraries, especially from the MAC, I familiarized myself with the map, and the programs are currently in Suffolk. They're mostly intern social workers. I'm thankfully a LMSW, so I'm a licensed master social worker. And my clinical supervisor is a LCSWR. So she's high caliber supervisor with a lot of clinical experience. So I may not have the clinical experience as she does with time and service, but I get to experience that through her. And also the fact that I am in a postgraduate program is increasing my skills with that. It's definitely sharpening them. So yeah, I am getting there. I'm gaining more experience. When I don't know something, I'm gonna go find out. And I'm okay with negative feedback. If there's places where I need to grow, I ask for it. So having a licensed master social worker is awesome, but I think also being able to accept our humility and embrace our shame when we need to learn and grow and say, Veronica, maybe you could do this differently. I think that's also very powerful, whether you're a social work intern or an LMSW or LCSW or a DSW, whatever, PhDs or whatever it is, if you could embrace that humility to shame. I know Freud wrote a beautiful paper. It might put you to sleep many times. But it's a wonderful paper, and it's about Dora. And it's basically him saying how he did something, maybe not the greatest form of practice, and he owned that shame and he owned that moment of growth. So I hope that yes, we wish we had more library social workers that are licensed, and hopefully one day I can be the LCSW and be able to provide that supervision and contribute to that profession, but not only as an LCSW but as a bilingual supervisor, right? Because that's huge. There's very many of us, but not all of us, go and take that jump and say, I'm going to be a supervisor. And that is something I do want to do one day. And I know that with my support system, I know Kristen, I'm so thankful she loves me. So we're going to make it work one day.
Always great to have an interdisciplinary team and, you know, a supervisor or, you know, any colleague who understands and values social work. So thank you, Kristen, for the support that you give social work and social workers in your community.
Thanks for letting me come on.
Absolutely. Carrie also said that they recently graduated. They are an MSW, looking to eventually take their license exam. Do you feel like most of your work is macro, meso, or clinical work? And do you think that there's a place for an MSW in a library? Like not with the L, the MSW.
Yeah, actually, my position was advertised as MSW. I came in as an MSW, but I quickly got my license, which I studied and neglected my husband for 2 months. So thank you, husband, for being so supportive to me. I remember, quick story, I remember opening the drawer and there was an onion like literally growing. So we know the importance of studying for these tests. So I wish you well. I know you're gonna take it and pass. And you know what? If you don't, now you know the sense of that test, and you're gonna do it again, and you're gonna get it. So yes, there is space. There is that space for MSWs. And again, you know, we provide different level of supervision, like we obtain level of supervision, but also our form of practice, right? I know in the beginning I was so scared of like, what am I doing? How does this work? There's no peer review literature on library social workers. So you know what? I went out and I did research. I started to ask around, what is the community need? When I do outreach, what are the services? So I'm very a go-getter. I don't like to sit and wait things to come to me. So I am out there researching and asking. I know I reach out to Sam and I'm like, Sam, how are you? And I know it was a typo first, but I'm glad we're here. So yes, there is that space. I do believe there is, but again, there's very limited positions, whether they're part-time or little alone full-time, right? Because if it's full-time, I'm going to compete with you and I'm okay with that. So yeah, it's very challenging. And your other question was, what kind of practice do we do? Meso, micro, or macro? I'm sorry, I need to study, right? Micro, meso, macro. So clearly we do a lot of micro, whether it's families, whether it's couples, whether it's individuals, literally individuals. Meso, well, we are a library, so we're combining those, right? We're combining those. As for the macro, part of it is doing this, having the conversation, advocating, asking our supporters that we do need licensed social workers, right? Because we know that you're an MSW today, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be in a year, right? So we do need licensed social workers. So yeah, mostly though is micro, because I see individuals mostly.
Awesome. And actually, I just have a question myself. What age demographic do you primarily work with? Or do you find yourself working with more kids, their parents together? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we work a lot with seniors and ages from 20 to 50. I think I got that bracket right. And that's a big gap, right? But mostly it's 30s and a lot of teenagers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great because we get to see everyone. And that is the beautiful thing about working here, that you get to practice many forms of therapy, although it's supportive therapy in short term, but we have to have the eclectic mindset and the humanistic approach, right? How is this, and how can I help this individual where they're at, how they are, what's going on with it, what they're presenting. And I love the psychodynamic approach to that too, because I mix both of them. I'm never gonna let go of my social work perspective. Thank you, Dr. Quinn Beers. So understanding that is part of us, but also understanding what are they saying without saying it, right? And that's powerful.
Awesome. We've slowed down with questions, so I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us. And really thank you, Veronica, for this presentation and sharing your work with everyone. And again, Kristen, for joining us and supporting having social work in your library. Is there anything that you would like to say just to close us up?
No, I thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. I know it probably was painful to sit through another Zoom, but thank you. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Amelia, for all the hard work. Thank you, Kristen. A special shout out to you and Jessica and Robin for always being such a great supporters. Thank you to my husband and my special person and my sister who have always been great support to me. So I appreciate that. I love you. And I really thank you for your support. And I hope that you go out there and demand to have a licensed social worker.
Awesome. Thank you again. And I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of their day and week. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.